The 2020 National Electrical Code permits the use of nylon cable ties for supporting cables on walls and ceilings subject to certain crucial conditions. Understanding these requirements is essential for ensuring safe and compliant electrical installations, particularly when dealing with specialized cables such as heliax coaxial cable in commercial settings. The first, and perhaps most important requirement, is that the cable ties used for supporting cables must be listed for this specific purpose. Listing, in the context of the National Electrical Code, means that the cable ties have been evaluated and certified by a recognized testing laboratory to meet specific safety and performance standards. This evaluation process ensures that the cable ties are suitable for supporting the weight of the cable, that they can withstand the environmental conditions in which they are installed, and that they will not contribute to any electrical hazards. When selecting cable ties for cable support, it's imperative to look for markings or labels that indicate the listing status. This information is typically found on the packaging of the cable ties and sometimes directly on the cable ties themselves. Consulting the manufacturer's specifications and documentation is also a good practice to verify the listing status and intended use of the cable ties. Secondly, the National Electrical Code mandates that cable ties must be installed in strict accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. Cable tie manufacturers provide detailed instructions and proper installation techniques, including the recommended spacing between cable ties, the maximum weight that each cable tie can support, and any specific precautions that must be taken during installation. These instructions are based on the design and testing of the cable ties, and they are crucial for ensuring that the cable ties perform as intended and provide reliable support for the cable. Failure to follow the manufacturer's instructions can compromise the integrity of the cable support system and potentially lead to cable damage or safety hazards. For example, using too few cable ties or spacing them too far apart may result in excessive cable sag or strain, while over-tightening the cable ties can damage the cable insulation or conductors. Thirdly, it is critical to avoid over-tightening cable ties. While it may seem intuitive to tighten cable ties as much as possible to ensure a secure hold, over-tightening can actually be detrimental to the cable and the cable ties themselves. Excessive pressure from over-tightened cable ties can deform the cable insulation, leading to electrical breakdown or short circuits. It can also weaken the cable tie material, reducing its load-bearing capacity and increasing the risk of failure. When installing cable ties, it's important to strike a balance between securing the cable and avoiding excessive pressure. The cable should be snug within the cable tie, but not compressed or deformed. It's also a good practice to use cable tie installation tools that provide a consistent and controlled tightening force. Fourthly, care must be taken to ensure that the cable ties do not damage the cable. As mentioned earlier, over-tightening can cause insulation damage, but there are other ways in which cable ties can potentially harm the cable. Sharp edges or burrs on the cable tie material can abrade the cable insulation over time, especially in environments where the cable is subject to vibration or movement. Similarly, certain types of cable tie materials may be incompatible with the cable insulation, leading to chemical reactions or degradation. To prevent cable damage, it's essential to select cable ties that are specifically designed for use with the type of cable being supported. Look for cable ties with smooth, rounded edges and made from materials that are compatible with the cable insulation. Also, inspect the cable ties before installation to ensure that they are free from any defects or imperfections that could potentially damage the cable. Article 314.17 C of the 2020 National Electrical Code provides specific guidance on the use of cable ties and other non-metallic cable ties for supporting cables within enclosures and outlet boxes. This article outlines the requirements for securing cables to the enclosure or box to prevent strain on the connections and to ensure that the cables are properly supported. The article specifies that non-metallic cable ties used for supporting cables must be listed for the purpose and installed in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. It also prohibits the use of cable ties that could damage the cable insulation or conductors. In addition to the requirements outlined in Article 314.17 C, it's important to consider the overall design and installation of the cable support system. The spacing between cable ties should be sufficient to prevent excessive cable sag or strain, but not so wide that the cable is unsupported. The cable tie should be positioned in a way that distributes the weight of the cable evenly and prevents any concentrated stress points. The cable support system should also be designed to accommodate any future cable additions or modifications. When working with heliax coaxial cable, it's particularly important to follow the manufacturer's recommendations for cable support. Heliax cable is a specialized type of coaxial cable that is commonly used in high-frequency applications such as radio communication and broadcasting. It typically has a larger diameter and a heavier weight than standard coaxial cable, which means that it requires a more robust support system. Heliax cable manufacturers often provide specific guidelines on the type of cable ties to use, the spacing between cable ties, and the maximum weight that the cable ties can support. They may also recommend using specialized cable support hardware, such as cable trays or hangers, to provide additional support and protection for the cable. In addition to the national electrical code requirements and the manufacturer's recommendations, it's also important to consider any local codes or regulations that may apply to cable support installations. Local codes may have additional requirements or restrictions on the use of cable ties, or they may specify the types of cable support hardware that are permitted in certain applications. Consulting with the local electrical inspector or building department is always a good practice to ensure that the cable support installation complies with all applicable codes and regulations. When selecting cable ties for cable support, it's important to consider the environmental conditions in which the cable ties will be installed. Cable ties that are exposed to sunlight, moisture, or extreme temperatures may degrade over time, reducing the load-bearing capacity and increasing the risk of failure. For outdoor applications or applications where the cable ties are exposed to harsh environments, it's recommended to use cable ties that are specifically designed for outdoor use. These cable ties are typically made from UV-resistant materials and are designed to withstand the effects of moisture and temperature extremes. They may also have additional features, such as corrosion-resistant hardware or self-locking mechanisms to ensure reliable performance in demanding environments. Another important consideration when selecting cable ties is the type of material from which they are made. Nylon cable ties are the most common type of cable ties, but they are not suitable for all applications. Nylon cable ties are relatively inexpensive and easy to install, but they can be susceptible to degradation in harsh environments. For applications where greater strength or durability is required, stainless steel cable ties may be a better option. Stainless steel cable ties are more expensive than nylon cable ties, but they offer superior resistance to corrosion, temperature extremes, and UV radiation. They are also stronger and more durable than nylon cable ties, making them suitable for supporting heavy cables or cables that are subject to high levels of stress or vibration. In addition to nylon and stainless steel cable ties, there are also a variety of specialty cable ties available for specific applications. For example, there are cable ties with integrated mounting bases that can be easily attached to walls or ceilings. There are also cable ties with releasable locking mechanisms that allow the cable to be easily removed or repositioned. And there are cable ties with identification tags that can be used to label cables for easy identification and maintenance. When installing cable ties, it's important to use the proper tools and techniques. Cable tie installation tools are available that can automatically tighten and cut the cable tie, ensuring a consistent and secure installation. These tools can save time and effort, and they can also help to prevent over-tightening or cable damage. When using cable tie installation tools, it's important to follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully to ensure that the tool is properly calibrated and that the cable tie is installed correctly. In addition to using the proper tools, it's also important to use the proper techniques when installing cable ties. The cable tie should be positioned so that it is snug against the cable, but not so tight that it compresses the cable insulation. The cable tie should be tightened until it is secure, but not over-tightened. And the excess cable tie material should be trimmed off cleanly to prevent sharp edges or burrs that could damage the cable or injure personnel. After the cable ties have been installed, it's important to inspect the cable support system to ensure that it is properly installed and that the cables are adequately supported. The cable ties should be checked to ensure that they are properly tightened and that there are no signs of damage or wear. The cable should be checked to ensure that they are not sagging or strained and that they are not rubbing against any sharp edges or surfaces. If any problems are found, they should be corrected immediately to prevent cable damage or safety hazards. In addition to the initial inspection, it's also important to perform regular inspections of the cable support system to ensure that it remains in good condition. The frequency of these inspections will depend on the environment in which the cable support system is installed and the type of cables that are being supported. In harsh environments or environments where the cables are subject to high levels of stress or vibration, more frequent inspections may be required. During these inspections, the cable ties should be checked for signs of wear or damage, and the cables should be checked for signs of sagging or strain. Any problems that are found should be corrected immediately to prevent cable damage or safety hazards. By following these guidelines, you can ensure that the cable support system is properly installed and maintained and that the cables are adequately supported. This will help to prevent cable damage, reduce the risk of electrical hazards, and ensure the reliable operation of the electrical system.